Hello, hello, hello. Hey guys, how's it going? Just make sure that everything's working. Hey guys, it's Justin. Welcome to episode 383 of DangIT Prodcast. It's kind of a weird opening for me to start off with. It's almost like I got like these mentally like recorded in the back of my head, and whenever I tried to do something like slightly different, everything just kind of like ends up as like a little bit of a fumble here and there. But we're here, Saturday. You know how it is. So, as I started off really awkwardly, why don't we just go and talk about what we got here on the topics list or things. It's just gonna be me this time around for the podcast. So it's been a while since we did like a solo one, so that's probably why. So actually, you know what? The first thing I wanted to talk about was just a couple of like inquiries I had about some sales over on Best Buy. If you guys aren't familiar about like what's going on right now, currently Best Buy is having their kind of their early like sales, not just like their usual daily stuff, but they also have Black Friday deals, and I've been kind of taking advantage of that this past week. I picked up two games already, but I have another pair just ready for pickup today actually. So I'm planning on heading out at some point later on today to pick those ones up. And I'll go ahead and talk about like what those two are after I talk about the ones I picked up earlier. If you guys have missed out on the Twitch streams, I pretty much already talked about how I got a $20 deal for Godfall. Right, it's the PlayStation 5 game that I think believe like it launched like the day of PlayStation 5 as well. But yeah, it was one of those. Was it like one of those looter games? I totally don't remember, but I did see the gameplay of it and I thought that was really interesting. It's just that the reviews otherwise had said that like it's not a game that, I think the overall consensus is that the game isn't really worth the $50 price point that it was set at like for the standard edition. So definitely something that was worth a little bit less than that, so I pretty much took the opportunity to try that one out. And then the next game that I picked up was a game called Greedfall, and this is the gold edition. I have it in my hands right now. The gold edition, it comes in a bigger box than just your standard like disc case, and that's because it includes well, obviously the game itself in this case, also like 3 lithographs and like a double poster. I believe there's something else as well added to that. Oh yeah, a sticker like a sticker sheet. So it has like a couple stickers like from the game. And just to let you guys know, those who aren't familiar, Greedfall is an RPG that came out for Xbox, I think PlayStation as well, a couple years ago, and recently just got a Series X and PlayStation 5 like update. I believe PlayStation 5 on PlayStation 5, or it could be PlayStation 4 and just had like an upgraded version for it. But essentially, yeah, it's an RPG. I looked further into it as far as the reviews. It was one of the games listed like for the Black Friday deal, so I was actually kind of curious about this one. So I looked into it, read some reviews. It's actually pretty good. It's just that for some reason at the time, it just didn't really get a lot of like support. Like at the time, no one was really talking about it. So when I looked into it, I saw the gameplay. I was like, oh, this is kind of up my alley. The fact that you can have like different types of like branching paths to go for your level ups. You can focus on like being like that mage type, like maybe do some melee, do a little bit of a mixture of all of it. Game reviews have said that you're better off actually having like a combined skill tree of things. So I'm probably gonna lean over to that, but I'm just really curious about like the experience like in general. Like I've probably talked about it like a couple times before, but when it comes to like RPGs, if magic's at all involved, I usually like go for that. So it'd be interesting if I just went with a whole like magic like run of like just that. But yeah, actually, whatchamacallit, I want to talk about as well, kind of more specifically for Twitch. We're actually live streaming this on Twitch to be posted like later on YouTube. And I wanted to kind of talk about it in the sense that having streamed on Twitch for a while now, not much growth, that's totally fine, but it is one of those things where like I say that, but it's also like there's a goal in mind to continue to build like a community based on this. And it's one of those things where at a certain point I just simply had just kind of like coast for a bit, just simply streamed with whatever game I chose to stream. And for me, I actually like to play just a bunch of like different games. Like there's a couple of like shooters here and there, like despite what I say about like that not being my biggest strong suit, I do like third person shooters quite a bit. Obviously you guys know that like I'm huge on RPGs, but I'm also pretty big on platformers as well. Whether it's Metroidvania or not, like it's still very much so fun with me. Action adventure games. What was it? I wouldn't. Should I say point and click as well? Not entirely. I guess if the story is like engaging enough, then like for sure, I'd be down for it. It's just really strange because I have all these different interests of mine, and it's one of those things where like when you have when you're trying to grow like an audience like on Twitch, it's one of the recommended things is that you want to stick to just kind of like one thing in general, instead of trying to like do all these different games here and there. And you know what? I think what I've come down to find out was that I might be kind of going down the route currently for RPGs, because currently what's going on Twitch is that we're going through the entirety of the Tales of series. Well, not the entirety. Let's asterisk. Just whatever I can get access to in a not so difficult manner. So again, going through the list, it's kind of a mouthful, but we got Tales of Symphonia, right? That's on Steam. Tales of Vesperia, which is currently on Xbox and PlayStation 4. Tales of Zestiria and Berseria, which are both on PlayStation 4. And then Tales of Arise, which is PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series. Plan on probably getting the series version of it. And I'm not really too picky about like sticking to one like platform for it. For everything, because you're just at this point when you go back into like an old franchise, you find yourself, if you want to like play through all these other older games, you do find yourself already spreading out like your availability on different platforms here and there. And that's what I had to do with Symphonia, because it was one of those games that was actually like accessible on the GameCube, and I believe at the time it may have been like the only method of having the game on the Western side of things, at the very least. But one of those things is that well, the issue being is that I wasn't really into that type of series or that type of genre at all when I was growing up, and there was just a bunch of other games that were openly available for myself and my brother to decide when we consulted with like my dad about like which game we wanted to get, because at the time we were pretty limited to like how many games we can get like per year. And so I could go through the list of like GameCube games, not from the top of my head, but maybe one of these days we can maybe sit down and actually talk about that. But there was a game that was readily available on the GameCube, which unfortunately I passed up on, and now I'm catching up on it through whatchamacallit on Steam. I actually got a pretty good deal for that one. I don't think it was like $7 to $8. I was like, let's go. So we got that going, and now we have Tales of Vesperia coming up. I'm pretty sure like I'm more than halfway through like Symphonia now. So far it's been good. Like I've actually really enjoyed myself, and just kind of like the approach that I need to take as far as navigating through the game, learning to like conquer a lot of like the boss battles, for example. And now we're getting closer to Tales of Vesperia, and during the time that like I tried it out for the very first time, because the chronological order that I ended up going was I went to Vesperia first, played like a good hour or two in, and then Mark reminded me, hey, there's also Symphonia. So I was like, oh, you're right. So I went back to Symphonia, and now like my save data for like this Vesperia is just sitting there up in the cloud. And during that time, it was readily available on Game Pass, like through Xbox, because if you guys don't know, Vesperia was technically supposed to be, and if I got my facts right about it, was an original Xbox 360 title, and only to be Xbox 360 title. until the definitive version came out, which made it readily available on, I think, Steam, but also PlayStation 4 as well. So I just chose like Vesperia for Xbox because that was just kind of the main origins of it. So yeah, so during that time it got off of Game Pass. I now own like a physical copy because it was one of those things where I was driven by a sense of urgency and scarcity like of this game, possibly now that it's been removed from Game Pass. So I was like, all right, here, I'll just go ahead and pick it up. It was relatively cheap, but you know, at the same time, like, it's one of those things where like if you're someone like me nowadays who tries to collect video games, not like in an excessive manner of just like collecting to collect, but also just picking up the games that you've been interested or actually do like, it was one of those things where I was like, I guess I should just go ahead and go for it. So we have it in the back there and it's ready to go. I actually rearranged the whatchamacallit, the shelf arrangement. And for those who are just listening to the podcast, that really doesn't matter much for you guys. But essentially, Nintendo takes up the top row. It's almost filled up to the very like well, in this case, I decided to move everything to the right so like it's easier for viewers to see. But the left side will need to be filled up again. Whereas like the bottom shelf has been rearranged so that it's not just all amiibos there. We've got the PlayStation and Xbox kind of taking up the different corners of that one. Xbox definitely taking up a lot more right now. And you know, that I think that's fair. I think that Xbox has kind of adopted this policy and idealism of just maintaining your Xbox catalog from however age that goes to. I think they still have a ways to go as far as the Xbox library, but as far as like 360 and Xbox One, they got you covered. And I hope that they'll continue to do backwards compatibility for as long as they can. And whether it be something physical or digital probably prefer in that case, you just have your entire library carried with you like over the years. Who knows for how long, but yeah. I haven't really like thought too much about like where Xbox or Nintendo Switch or PlayStation go. Like could you imagine if, and you know, it might happen like later down the line, but the Switch changing like its entire like peripheral and everything like that, changing like the game type, whether it be like discs now instead of like cartridges. That's gonna suck. It'd be great for collection stuff, just as something you would unearth like one of these days, like later on in the future. You look at it and you're like, oh yeah, I remember where they used to have cartridges, but now it's readily available. And I don't know. I still say that Switch is still like my favorite platform, so I'm happy that I have so many of them. so many. But okay, where was I going with this? I kind of like went on like a tangent of my own. So yeah, definitely going back to it, the topic about where I want to be as far as Twitch, it starts to seem like I'm going towards the RPG aspect of it, the approach anyway. Like I'd be the RPG dude, like whenever you tune in on like a Twitch stream here and there. And you know what, I'm actually okay with that, because I just really am curious about like the Tales of series, and then after that we're gonna try out like the East series. We're pretty much trying 1 through 9 minus 5 because that wasn't ever like localized for the West. But yeah, I'm totally down to just try that out. But I will say though, and this is one of my talking points, it does kind of get in the way of just simply trying out other games on stream. October is kind of the exception. And matter of fact, like over the years, I feel like content creators should, like on Twitch specifically, but also YouTube as well, if they do live stream like games as well, that they want to just kind of diversify themselves just a little bit, just so they can try out different things. But you know, when you're trying to like develop an audience, I'm sure that like one of the things is just that like to kind of keep it consistent that way. Otherwise, if you keep jumping to different genres, then like people will just kind of like tune out of it, especially if they are looking for a specific type of content, right? So that's kind of like where I'm looking at it from now. Initially, and I think I talked about like, actually, I don't think I talked about it last podcast. It happened like this past Sunday, and I think I talked about it like on a Monday stream. So like off the podcast time, was that I wanted to and obviously I've just been inspired by another content creator who does this, but I wanted to try applying different types of like difficulties, like self-implemented difficulties into video games, that just already have their own established difficulty like system. So let's take for example, and this is one I could probably feasibly do. It's a little game called Scarlet Nexus. You may know about it. For me personally, it's kind of like one of my favorite like games like of this year. Actually, Metro Dread like literally is like right there next to it too. Um, and I really enjoyed that game for just like the amount of content that it had provided, and the fact that you had like two playthroughs of two dual like protagonists, though very similar, and though playing one like without the others like experience is kind of strange. And it's one of those games that I can definitely just see some faults in it over others, but for the most part all the good things about it like outweigh any like negatives I could possibly have. Couldn't name anything right now, but essentially one of the things I would like to point out is that the game is it's a little too easy actually. I started that game from hard difficulty like right off the bat because I was playing through the demo of it, and I was thinking to myself like, this is actually pretty cool. Like this is one of those games that like it can provide like a really good challenge to you if you rack up the difficulty, and you would feel like better off rewarded for it. So I tried out like hard mode like for both the dual protagonists like perspectives, Yuto, Kasane, and I didn't actually have much problems with either or. So I was thinking to myself, having watching someone else's stream, them like applying different like difficulty stuff, I was thinking, what would I do if there wasn't a DLC for Scarlet Nexus that like applied to like a higher difficulty setting? Because right now, and this is a topic within itself, they got some paid DLC, but it includes mainly like cosmetics and some additional like character dialogue between like different Bond episodes, if you will. And that's cool and all. I just wish that they added something more to like the gameplay aspect of it as well. So I was thinking to myself, like, what can I do to implement more difficulties in it? Should I not like add anything to the brain skill tree that they got implemented? Should I not try to get attached to characters and form these Bond episodes which add to like bonuses whenever you use their powers? I started thinking about that, and I do have an idea of like what I want to do. And I believe because Scarlet Nexus is an action JRPG or an action RPG in general, I think that can be better implemented actually. And I'm already familiar with the game by itself, so it's one of those games that is both pretty short, right? Game takes about like 50 hours if you play both sides, but if you play only one side, then that's all you got. And it's only like 20 plus hours, so it's not that bad. Versus what I'm already like trying to like rack into Tales of Symphonia. That's a pretty lengthy game. I wonder how far I am now. But yeah, no. So that kind of that level of difficulty. I also thought about going back into Metroid hard mode, and in addition to the hard mode there, and honestly, maybe I should just play through hard mode just first time going through it, because the game's already difficult as it is on normal. So it's a stark contrast, right? Metroid Dread like normal version, it's actually pretty difficult like at times, and Scarlet Nexus hard mode is just like it's kind of the normal mode. Sometimes like in that game specifically, I forget that like I'm set at a harder difficulty, and I think maybe Tales of Symphonia, I think I have that at a hard difficulty as well, if that's an option. I actually don't remember. But yeah, I would love to try like harder difficulties, just like one for content, and two because content. But no, like I think playing games at different difficulty setting does kind of change the way you perceive the game. Like I think like a good example is like if you were playing through Doom, for example, and you played from like easy to like ultra violence, for example. One corridor in easy mode is entire traumatic experience in another one. And the fact that you could point that out specifically, like, oh, in this corner there was only one of these gremlins and then one of the floating orb dudes, it's totally fine. But then it could be like in ultraviolence, like, yo, so I absolutely hate this portion right here. I turn around the corner here, there's like 3 gremlins and there's 2 floating dudes, and they all attack you simultaneously right off the gate. So I mean, I like that it kind of evolves the game, like as far as like one's experience with it, even more so. And I think what helped me to like kind of view that, because I was one who didn't really, well, I guess except for Fire Emblem, that was definitely a game that I played like on the hardest difficulty and absolutely like hated it. Seriously, like don't ever try like 3DS Lunatic Fire Emblem games. It's just, especially Lunatic Plus, because that's another difficulty level, and you need to love yourself more than to try that out. My god, dude, I can talk about Fire Emblem Awakening Lunatic Plus experience like all day. It's the worst, but I won't really jump into that like right now. I will say though that another instance was playing through Scarlet Nexus twice, because you have to, that's like Yuto's playthrough, you're playing Kasane's playthrough, and they're both converging like time, like they're both the same timeline, just from a different perspective. And you find yourself going to the same locales as well. So you're just playing through it twice, just with like different party members like off the bat. But near the end of the game, spoiler alert, you pretty much have access to everyone. So I'm just really curious as to how that can be played out. So, but actually, there's no really but to it. I was just thinking about the fact that like that means that a lot of the games I play like off screen are just simply going to be like off screen and can only be allocated to that like that free time slot that I got. So I guess like right now, I'm playing through Atelier Ryza 2, and I guess I could talk about like my experiences of it so far. It's definitely a series I wasn't like initially like on board with. Like it was one of those games where I saw it and I was like, oh, okay, and just move forward. And then, you know, friend Phil actually had recommended to me for anyone who likes like JRPGs. So I was like, all right. I ended up loving it so much, and I was like, okay, you know what? We'll go in for the sequel as well. And so I just been playing through that. It's interesting. Just a quick aside about the game, that you play through the game for the first like couple hours, and you know they have like divided up dungeons here and there, to in ruins to explore. And before you even step foot into the third one, right, you can actually just make yourself super overpowered. And I'm not talking about like old school Pokemon, which by the way, it's a series that I should definitely try to jump back into. And actually, oh, hold that thought. I know that there's like a legendary event like in Pokemon, like Sword and Shield, as far as legendaries. But aside the point, like at that point, like you can get yourself super overpowered. And I'm not talking about the sequence in Pokemon where you literally go into the area before the main city with the gym to level grind your characters like in Pokemon up to like 10 level increments, or 5, whatever. And you just absolutely just sweep the entire team like of the opposing gym leader. But it's one of those where if you explore a lot of the dynamics in Atelier Ryza 2, or have some familiarity in 1, that you find out that like if you keep following your curiosity down like a certain pathway, you find yourself understanding and actually exploiting the game in a certain way. So Mark is jumping into the chat. He's just saying apologies for leaving you writing solo. It's fine. Everyone's like really busy these days. Like I'm also like preoccupied later on today, so just let you guys know, no evening stream for that one. But kind of going back into Ryza 2, yeah, you will like explore all these different aspects, and you understand that like in order to like level up like this whole skill tree that you got, right, you need like SP, and you earn SP by like synthesizing like items, but also just doing other things such as like rebuilding your items like to a crazy amount. And you essentially like just feed that loop over and over and over again, knowing that you have like an unlimited source of items like right outside like the atelier, or you just go around and just collect things. And as this is all happening, you know, you just like go to various parts of the city and you fast travel, and then sequences and stories just pop up for like your characters interacting with other party members. And it just seems like a very, what's the word, it feels like a very organic like type of situation where like days are passing and people are just simply like carrying on with their daily life, and you just get a little snippet of like how people are doing like in the party as you're just doing your own thing. So I feel like I'm in my element, and I could choose to go and continue on with the story, but I'm just like, nah, dude, I just want to kind of like explore like all these different options that I got so far. No evening stream? Yeah. So, you know, it's a very long story. Well, not a very long story. I'll go ahead and talk about it. You know how I was talking about like earlier this past month, right? That I've been really thinking about like my relationships with like friends and coworkers, right? And how you have those situations and dynamics where you have one person that you talk to, and all they can do is dump so much like grief onto you as far as like things that are happening in their life. And sometimes it just never comes out as like as a positive experience. So now all of a sudden you associate that person, whether it's you doing that or you receiving that it becomes an association, and well, a negative association. And that's when I stopped, because I was going like one day at work, I wanted to reach out to one of my coworkers and just express like how stressful things have been like since the pandemic. But I've literally have done that so many times previously. So I was like, that's like, this is a no-go. I don't want to like have that type of relationship. So not to keep, and yeah, against what the chat was saying earlier about that when I initially talked about it, I'm not trying to pent everything else up, right? Of course, like it's a way to talk about something to someone who's familiar with that topic, but it shouldn't be the only thing. So way back, I had spoken to an old coworker friend of mine and just wanted to ask to hang out because we used to do that when I was in the similar department. And, you know, like those plans fell through, but something else popped up, and that's what's happening like this evening. So yeah, that's TLDR. So I want to still follow through with that. I don't want to have these relationships where like one person, like one group or person can be associated like good as far as like having a positive relationship, and potentially not be something that like is just positive. Well, actually, that's kind of a weird way of saying it. Let me just like start over to this side. I don't want to have like that type of like dynamic with another person, right? That's just nothing but like one, work, and two, negative stuff about the work, right? Because that's just not good. We need to have like a good balance of that kind of stuff. And not to just ignore like the friend group / individual over here where it's like all I do is just talk about like my ambitions or any positive things that have been happening, but just simply just share like experiences with them, whether it is positive or just negative, because at the end of the day, everyone's on a different, everyone's kind of on a similar template as you as far as like potential stuff like happening to them, whether it be good or bad. So I just want to foster like, I guess I'm going to use this for the second time, organic type of relationships where like, you know, you see that person for every aspect of them and kind of not see them as like, I guess, a way for you to like, it's kind of hard to really describe that one. Treat equally, I think is the best way to really describe it. Treat equally versus like positive, the negative side. Because it's just going to develop like associations in your brain. Like, you know, it's like, okay, well, they're not negative all the time, or it's like it's not always like sunshine and like rainbows over here. but you cognitively you already develop that association, so you can't help but like guide conversations like in that way anyway. So I just want to like keep that like all flatlined and just make it just normal. Anything could happen. It's weird to really describe how I want to go about it, but I just want to just try that is. But that was an interesting like segue. Um, I know I was talking about Ryza 2, and I was just talking about how I'm just kind of in the zone of just not even tackling the main story. The main story itself is kind of it's interesting in a way. Like if you played through the first game, essentially Ryza's like finished up like her adventuring like days like with her friends, and then 3 years have passed. She's been doing the same thing at her hometown. Everyone else has like went off and done different things, and so following her gut feeling of just simply wanting to explore more of the alchemy stuff that she works on, decides to accept the invitation from one of her hometown friends to go over to the capital city, the imperial city, if you will, and help him out with researching ruins, which is kind of the adventure aspect of it. Um, and so there's a lot of mystery as far as like what are they going to find, because a bunch of other things kind of pop up, and it's interesting enough. But me having like spent like a good couple like hours in the previous game just simply kind of extrapolating on the whole alchemy and leveling up aspect of it and how to really make your characters busted, has got me thinking like, okay, this is kind of where I want to go. In the like in my playthrough here, like I'm not really in it for like playing in neutral and just like if the game beats me up, it beats me up. It's like, nah, dude. Well, I mean, obviously, yeah, it might happen, but I'm like, nah, dude. If I have the resources, I'm gonna go in and I'm going to like make myself as busted as possible, and that's just gonna be my new approach on that one. I did talk about implementing difficulties in the game. That is not to say that like I don't find like all the games that I play through like super easy, right? I mean, we were talking about Metroid Dread earlier, and normal difficulty it kind of kicks your ass sometimes. I mean, the enemies are a huge problem, but there's some boss battles that are actually legitimately difficult where I've died a couple times. Specifically the end boss. I can't imagine hard mode, let alone trying to do a hard mode where it's like you avoid all possible weapons and health upgrades. Like, bruh, like there's some that literally take one energy like tank load out of you and you're done. So you're dead in one hit. And I mean, it's possible, it's super possible, but I definitely want to try out hard difficulty first and just simply enjoy it for what that is before I jump into that. So if I ever wanted to do that on like the channel, I would definitely want to go through a hard mode like regular run as it is, and then if I ever want to jump back into it, fuck, like super hard mode. And then I'd also like play through Scarlet Nexus like self-implemented super hard mode. And you know what, I did want to talk about this because I'm not sure if anyone has like a specific opinion about this, but I was looking at like what new things are being added to Scarlet Nexus, because as you guys know, like I actually really do like that game and I actually completed it, and I was really curious as to what they would do like for later content. And they've already showed their trailers. They've shown like a couple things here and there, and one of those things is just simply a paid DLC that includes cosmetics, additional Bond episodes, essentially more dialogue, and that's kind of it. There's some challenges that they added at the end which lead to more cosmetics, I suppose. I'm not sure if I'm so big on the cosmetics to go that far into it. Like when you beat the game, they give you options for challenges that will give you like essentially the best weapon that you can get for each individual character. They're part of like an instances that you gotta like collect all these different materials, but also get a special material that you'll only get from that mission, that end game mission. And so I pretty much did that, and I totally enjoyed it. I think that the quick aside, I think that the side quests and like the side quest fetching is like totally fine in that game. Like you'll like once you really get a groove for like the entire bit of combat, you're really just like going through, you're mowing down like enemies like no problem. So, and there's a quite a bit of finesse to it, so it's also kind of cool to actually see you clear through enemies just like that. But I really would have liked to see them implement like a new difficulty level, and that would also help foster you to see those new Bond episodes, and also while at the same time discover new of those cosmetics. But I haven't seen anything about that as far as like a new difficulty. And if I could like suggest anything like as an open forum right now, I would have loved to probably implement it such that I think that you would rearrange like the brain skill tree, whether you're allocating different types of upgrades to different portions of it, so not everything's in the same spot anymore, or even lessening how much you can actually upgrade yourself to, like that kind of stuff. But as I was saying earlier, a way to like just self implement that type of difficulty is just by simply limiting which skills you can get, preventing yourself from using items, that kind of stuff, preventing yourself from viewing bonds, which lead to bonuses. So essentially, from start to finish, you're running absolutely vanilla, and the only thing that's leveling up or that's improving is just your level. And I don't even think you can do something like that. You know how Kingdom Hearts games these days, you have the option to not like level up, which actually, by the way, Kingdom Hearts is an action JRPG, so I can actually do that if I want to stick to the RPG like aspect of things, like as a consistent content thing for streams. And again, different like categories will pop in here and there. Like for example, next week we're gonna do Alan Wake, and we're pretty much gonna dedicate ourselves to that game because you know, Phil recommended that one. I was also kind of curious about it myself way back when, but I never quite like jumped in on that one. But now that they got a remaster, I'm like, yeah, let's give it a try. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. But that leads me to the next thing I want to talk about, actually. Since we're talking about like future things happening for the channel, I want to talk about the schedule. Oh god, the schedule. So this happened a few days ago, actually, when I was just doing a stream of like Tales of Symphonia. Oh, we have Ghost in here saying Alan Wake is the greatest Stephen King book game. You know what? I see it. I can visualize that. So yeah, so we'll definitely take some time like in between like plays of like Tales of series, and then later on the E series to play like games like that, because of course it's October, so we're gonna have to play like something that's a little darker, a little scary, maybe just a little bit. And one of those games is Alan Wake, so I'm just like, okay, you know what, I was curious about it, and it was one of those weird games that just popped out that like even now I look at it, I'm like, wait, why did this game come out? Not like critiquing it or anything like that. It was just such a weird like perspective that I look at it. I mean, like it is a horror game, so horror games like in and of itself like are a commodity, really. But yeah, so we're gonna devote the entirety of next week to Alan Wake from start to finish, and then and of course if we finish it early, if we do, apparently it's only like 11 to 14 hours worth of gameplay, something like that. Shouldn't be too bad, but we're essentially committing to like the entire week to it. And if we don't finish, or if we do finish, then we'll just go and resume the usual schedule of things. But I did want to say, oh yeah, Ghost is also saying that it's great for like a good spook, if that makes any sense. Spooky, but not like disturbing. Fair, right? Because listen, a lot of like horror games do take advantage of like our innermost fears of like possibly like identifiable, yes, yet very deformed like human bodies, as one example. Actually I would say that Scarlet Nexus is actually kind of weird like that. They got some humanoid like beings, but with a slight twist on it. It's kind of like, when I think about it, it's kind of gross. It's kind of gross, but like the mood of that game is definitely not like horror, so I guess that also affects like how I view it. But I mean, like, I feel like with Alan Wake, it's just like, ooh, dark ghost spectrums or specters, like, ooh, you gotta make that booty clench. Ooh. And he's like, he used the flashlight. We did play like the Blair Witch Project, right? Or yeah, the Blair Witch game. I think that was on Game Pass at the time, and I think it left Game Pass as well. And I remember that it was such a short game that Gabe actually played through all of it in one sitting. It was like 4 to 5 hours, and we cleared through it, and it was legitimately like a scary time. Oh, but Ghost says like it's a thriller, not like a body horror. Like we have Dead Space for that. Oh my god, dude, Dead Space, bruh. They also are getting remastered. Jesus, dude. We might. I don't think my heart can take like the first two. 3 seems like it's kind of tame, right? Three's a little bit more tame. It has a much more vocal like protagonist, so it kind of keeps you in the keeps you calm down. And there's also Alien Isolation. Jeez, dude. I remember I got screwed over in Alien Isolation. I realized that I made the game even more difficult by like alerting like all the guards, right? And then also heading back to where I should have been, or heading back to where I came from, instead of just trying to like find a way through and get to the next room. But now I have to start from the very beginning down the floor and go to the second floor while trying to avoid every single person and not get like shot up like Swiss cheese, right? Mark says, we got to my girlfriend's parents this morning and turned on the corner. Wayne, whatchamacallit, walking past us all of a sudden with a red fox and his tongue out like a dog, and he was just walking like by into the woods. No, it sounds like normal fox behavior. Ghost says 3 is fine since it has a co-op. Great world building also. Oh, okay, cool. Because I guess whatchamacallit, Dead Space 1 and 2 are kind of like self-isolated type of like horror games, which of course that's gonna have to be the case. And you know, I hear, yeah, there is actually a bit of world building in 3 from what I remember, so that's actually kind of interesting too. So yeah, this kind of goes back to the schedule things, right? So a couple of days ago, we were playing through I think it wasn't Tales, right? I don't think it was a Tales game. I think it was a different game that we were playing like that night. Matter of fact, why don't I just go ahead and like check out like what I was thinking about. We'll just make sure I'm muted here. Thank you. And be a producer. Oh, you know what? It was Smash Brothers. It was Monday. So I guess it will also like stem over to Smash Brothers for a bit, but let me just go ahead and finish my thought here. So near like I think somewhere in the middle of the stream, right? Like the first half of the stream, which is like an hour in, we got a raid actually from another like Twitch streamer, and I believe his name is Isaac, and but not the one that I know. But we got a raid there, and it was super cool because it was one of those things where it's like, and I'm still wanting to do this though at some point, but just catch you guys up. So on Monday when Sora came out, I wanted to use Sora and literally have him be set up in a Kingdom Hearts like one-on-one fight with every single fighter in the Smash roster, but yeah, like set up as kind of like a Kingdom Hearts that's like a new one. I've been saying Kingdom Heats for a while. Kingdom Hearts dynamic where it's like they have a health bar, right? And essentially this is stamina mode. So you literally just set like your stamina and you set up to level 9s and you just go out like that. I had to do a couple of adjustments here and there just so it didn't like play out for too long. Like adjust their HP from like 500 to about 300. I think that's a kind of a good sweet spot at this point. Just to replicate like those like later end bosses that have like multiple like green squares like above their like actual health bar. And I was like, okay, I think this can work. And then we got the raid. But as you guys probably know, sometime in the evening around a Pacific time at night, the stream absolutely dies. It dies and it gets reconnected like less than a minute later. Um, but the thing is that like when people are new to the streams, right? Um, Mark, yeah, definitely throwing in his topic. Sora needs a nerf. We'll definitely talk about that in just a little bit. Although I'll be 100% honest, I've only played Sora that one night, and I immediately like resumed everything else. But yeah, the stream died. We reconnected, but from what I can understand, like a lot of the people who just jump in right onto streams, I mean, welcome by the way. They don't expect that to happen to them. So just as how like I can look at like I jump into a stream and then the ad starts playing immediately. Sometimes I just click off because I'm just like I don't want to see this ad. I really don't want to see this ad. But then there's also similar to that can be a situation where you jump in and all of a sudden stream just dies and you're like, oh, what the oh, and they can stay there but they can also just leave at that point. So I don't want that to happen in the future. And though we like those who are familiar with the channel do know that that happens, it's such an inconvenience that I wanted to just kind of circumvent that by streaming at a different like time. So you know how we start at 7? I'm thinking about pushing that a little bit. Say like 8:15, like literally just right after like the stream would end up cutting. It does suck for East Coasters though. That does suck for East Coaster because it's like I'm literally bleeding into like midnight at that point. You should like put a disclaimer. I don't want to put a disclaimer. Like, listen, like I already got like and that was Mark saying it. But yeah, no, I don't want to do a disclaimer because it's one of those things where it's like it's almost seemingly out of my own control because from what I understand that like that stuff does kind of happen. But that only is if like so many devices are connected to the same like internet, like well yeah, it's connected to the internet. But that stuff can't really be helped. And it's so weird that it happens specifically at that time of day. Like I understand like if it's something that just simply happens like at night generally because like that's when like all family members come home and they're just streaming stuff. I get that. But why is it specifically this time at night? It's gone to like I got down to a science, bruh. Like I figured it out. Like all the times I stream like at a slightly varying time outside of like after 7, I noticed it and I was like, wait, this is weird. And then I just resumed the schedule and I realized like that's happening specifically that at that time. But yes, okay. Yeah, it's out of your control. It just happens. But well, actually, no, technically not. Like I can control it in the sense that I just move my time. Like honestly. So the idea, the proposal in this case, is from instead of 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific, we switch it to 8:15 p.m., 10:15 p.m. So we still maintain the same like time frame, and I still can still get enough sleep. But I understand that this also affects like different like regions as well because that kind of like throws them off too. So, I mean, I think what we can do, I mean, that's one proposal, right? I think another thing we can do for Ghost says here in Brazil it's like 7 to 8 p.m. so it is a high activity time. Yeah, but I think the situation is that the traffic actually happens like here locally. So I don't think it's a case where like maybe it is the family, like number of family members here, but it can also be like maybe at some point someone has a routine like outside. Listen, humans are creatures of habit, and I've really been adopting that type of like quote for a while now. And you know, maybe there's someone like in the neighborhood who just so happens to tune in and use the most bandwidth at like that particular time at night, and I guess that's all I can do. I also would propose also that we have like a break in between, right? So people just know. And for those who literally jump in at that time, it's unfortunate. But I can use that little small time frame that I now know and just have that as like the breaking period. I can literally roll ads like during that time, and whether it gets cut off or not, it doesn't really matter. Which is actually a good idea. Did you guys know, just as my situation where, there's times where I'll literally jump into a stream and ad immediately rolls, I'm out. Like I just hop out, like just simply because like just jumping into a stream by curiosity, but not even wanting to like engage on this ad that I cannot skip, right? So I wanted to set it up so that like I can still roll like ads and control when like an ad will start running. And if I time it correctly, no ads will actually roll when I'm actively doing something on stream, So I'm going to try to really manipulate that like a lot in that case. Excuse me. I will also go back into Kingdom Hearts right now. Mark was saying about the nerf, but Ghost said also that first time I played Kingdom Hearts 2, I actually didn't know the health bars showing up like was a perk. I was confused why enemies just health was just not showing. Yeah, that is a weird thing because you actually need to equip scan in order to make that work. It's a thing. I think yeah, that's also part of Kingdom Hearts 3 as well. But Ghost says like here in South America, it's generally 9 to 10 like p.m. work hours. So 10 p.m. Brazil is just high activity hours. Really? That's interesting. But yeah, so talking a little bit about Smash Brothers, right? So when I played as Sora, I would say that my impressions of him were just fair. I think I shared the same like opinion as Phil did, in the sense that like Sora is a very like approachable character for a lot of people. You can easily play as him. How to master him is kind of interesting because he does seem like very simple, and I'm not going to go for the obvious pun there. But yeah, like he has a very simple approach to like how he does things. He does have like his 3-hit combo, which you can link up with at any point, like on the ground or in the air actually, but not like going into each other, like not like transitioning from like ground to up, like that's not a thing that happens. But I don't know, I've been seeing a couple things here and there as far as like some of the broken natures about like Sora. Like for example, I believe a good counter could actually literally knock someone out of like the screen like immediately, depending on how things are. Well, actually, no, I'm thinking about Sephiroth actually, about like a specific thing I had in mind. It's where whatchamacallit, you actually have to break the enemy's shield, and this person's at like 30% or something like that. You charge up like your curse thing, like your side B, and you just like flick another one at the person, and they have like 4 like rotating spheres at that point. And then at that point you charge your like Faraga, and I believe it's a different like variation of that move, and you shoot it out, and you already do the initial knockback, but then that's when the curse stuff like get applied and literally will like stack up the damage and also the knockback, and you just get knocked out like from 30 to like 120 something immediately, and you're like, what the fuck, dude? And all you gotta do is just break a shield. I mean, obviously that's harder than, it's a little bit harder than you think. But no, I've seen some stuff about Sora specifically, in the fact that like what thing I saw from Mark specifically referencing this one was the fact that in the training room you can actually see Sora, if timed properly, literally combo like himself like into an enemy like a good number of times, and they can never recover from it. So essentially what I saw was that like this person would repeat like a combo but only throw in 2 hits, and then I think they would hit the ground and they would jump back up and continue the 2 hits. And during this time window, the opponent can't recover from it. So literally just being juggled all the way to the end of the screen is what I saw. And I think that's kind of crazy. That requires quite a bit of coordination for sure. whatchamacallit, and then no, I think that's pretty much it. It's just the fact that Sora can juggle. I'm still on it about the fact that like people can like weave through Thundaga more often than you would like it to. That's my thing. Oh, but Ghost actually had to like head out, so appreciate you jumping in and also like giving us your opinion on what calls it, the Dead Space series, but also talk about Alan Wake quite a bit. Down smash is literally gives you like passive dodge, and the counter can knock Banjo out of like Wonder Wing. Oh yes, I do remember that. That was also a thing they shared as well. That's kind of crazy, but you know what? For someone just like Banjo, it's but I guess I understand that like that starts to become like a visual counter. Like those characters, like I think everyone who's like played a fighting game has a situation where you're playing online and you'll select your character and then the opponent chooses their own character, and you're wondering like why did they take so long to select their own character like that? And it's because they have calculated like a counter character for that character, and it just works. It just works. So I'd hate to see the day where like, and honestly like it is already an established thing where like there's definitely counters to certain characters, because like literally little Mac has a lot of people who counter him because of the nonsense, but it also depends too. Wonder why it's supposed to be invincible though. Well, I know the thing with like Sora's like counter, right? It's supposed to really replicate exactly what he does, which is to do a counter attack immediately. But I guess it also is to like falter the enemy as well, so it adds that into it. I think that his down smash does provide like a level of difficulty to him where some attacks that you don't really think about, like for example when you try to do attack from the ledge, or you're grabbing onto the ledge and then you go for the attack button recovery onto a ledge, and actually that's the wrong terminology for it too. Essentially when you're hanging from the cliff and you just press like A to get up and do an attack immediately to prevent anyone from trying to like whatchamacallit, controlling that aspect of it and prepping like an attack for you as you get up. The sword does the passive and can literally like send you back out again, so it just adds like another level to difficulty to consider when facing against him. I will say though that like from my experience, and this is because I'm super noobish when it comes to Sora and a lot of other characters, mind you, it's definitely helped me out a bit, but not 100%, right? I found that a lot of issues that Sora has is the fact that like he's too floaty. Short hops don't have that same level of like effectiveness, I would say, because essentially for me, short hops and attacks are kind of like a way to space yourself like from the character. They can't really like approach and attack you like so simply, if that makes sense. And then with Sora, like when you do a short hop, he's still excessively floaty, so you can't take advantage of the fact that you short hop and you drop, short hop and you drop. It's your new mixtape. But like I can't take advantage of it like that same way. I can still link up your combos, and I think that's kind of how you want to circumvent that, is the sense that you don't have frame priority period when you're Sora, unless it's a specific thing like for the down smash, like that's specifically you giving yourself like an extra like bit of like frames to avoid being hit, and then you go for the attack. But for like if a character is rushing at you, you can't like, chances are you won't be able to counteract them because they're probably like at a higher frame like to attack you with priority than you would. So I feel that like you're gonna try to like throw a neutral combo at someone, you have to start early and possibly sacrifice that first hit just so like when they approach you, you're already attacking, and then the second one can hit you, and then of course you can follow up with whatever. That's just my take on it. This is my absolutely non-competitive approach of it. Like, hey, if you're having trouble hitting somebody, just start hitting early. And I think the fact that you have to rotate his magic, which makes sense in the game, right? Dream Drop Distance introduced not introduce, Birth by Sleep did it, but essentially those two games did the whole deck cycling. A little slightly different from the whole card-based game from Chain of Memories, but essentially you would just cycle through your skills and magic, and they would just refill at a certain period of time. In this case, you just cycle through it consistently. So I'd say that the fact that you have to still cycle through it, and give me a second. I was able to last this long in the podcast without ever taking a sip. And to be fair, it's already been past an hour. So nice job, me. I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that one. But whatchamacallit? I was gonna say something else, but I don't remember what it was. It was about Sora. So yeah, so Faraga's directional Thundaga is a little bit limited, but in a sweet spot, it can help push enemies away. And Freeze is just up close and personal, which might actually be a lot more of a benefit if enemies are approaching you. So that could be a cool thing. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So in my opinion, I mean, I don't really believe at this time Sora needs the nerf, but I don't decide that. It's pretty much everyone else's feedback and what the devs want to do with that. But for Sora, I think he has both strengths and also visible weaknesses versus some other Smash characters. But it depends on how you play them, right? It's all about the skill required in that too. To which I don't have that, but I'll still continue that run of level 9 fights of everyone in a stamina scenario. So that's kind of what I wanted to bring up on that one. Is there anything else I wanted to talk about? I did talk about God of War on PC. That's coming out, and that's just super cool. I think Mark is still in the chat, so I just wanted to say that, Mark, we already talked about this, but it's super cool because in this case you can actually play God of War. It is $50 though, but at least you can spend only $50 to possibly play it on your possibly performance recommended base PC. I have no idea if you can run this is what I'm trying to say. I have no idea if you can run it, even if you can afford it. But hey, if you ever upgrade, you'll still be able to play it. So as far as PC stuff, so just putting it out there. I think it's a good thing that no matter what, and if anything, putting games onto PC at the end of the day allows the game to just kind of carry a lot of just replay value on it, because as I was talking to you guys, and I got itchy nose, apologies on that, I think we're getting to a point where a lot of games that came out way back when are not really playable these days because no one has the hardware for it. But if you put it onto PC, that's something that won't go away. So it only makes sense to just kind of put it on the PC platform so you can replay it at some point later on in life, how I am playing through Tales of Symphonia, and eventually we're going to be playing through the East series, and a lot of those games came from different consoles way back when. On consoles you can't really easily get access to depending on what the platform is. So the fact that I have every single game now, and I was able to do that without too much excessive backtracking for consoles in here and there, is brilliant. And the fact is that it's best to be able to play it on PC because PCs can be optimized. It's kind of crazy. I guess that's another thing that happened too while I'm at it. I wanted to talk about it too because part of me kind of has to applaud this in a weird sense, right? Because the audience is kind of specific on this one. So Apple, right? I'm kind of doing my daily driver is actually just an iPhone, right? But I don't really have other Apple products except for the watch, and I guess also the iPad. But That's all for like entertainment, if not like day-to-day stuff. Not specifically content creation or anything like that. I also noticed that like we also had bad stream health, but don't worry, we're just talking. Don't worry about it. They released a new chipset for their MacBook Pros. It's an A1 Pro and A1 Max, and these guys don't come cheap. Base laptop or base MacBook Pro with the A1 Pro, I believe, is $2,000. That absolutely just shot like both PC specs that I got like out of the water, mind you. And granted, the streaming PC, right, slash editing PC, has gone through a couple of upgrades here and there, so it's definitely increased in like the pricing of it. I think the stream PC initially had a budget of $2,000 actually, but we ended up spending a bit on just the peripherals, like a monitor that I still use, keyboard and mouse that I still use, just to just because we could. And also, I guess also because of the fact that like with that like editing PC, we were kind of limited based on whatever like Fry's Electronics had. It was one of those runs, and to be fair, it ended up pretty well. Like it was still a pretty good like PC at the time. We did upgrade a couple things though. It could still be further upgraded too. So, I just don't know if I really need that. Yeah, I don't know if I need that. Honestly, like if I really was like so amped about like trying out like more 4K like footage specifically, then I would look into that. But essentially, what these MacBook Pros are actually like offering is the fact that you can edit these not these games, but you can edit 8K stuff. Like I was like, what the bruh? Like, and it's to a point where like, yes, my stance on this is that like, yes, this is I would say this is within the realm of like hyper expensive. I mean, what was it, that Mac Pro display was already like where the stand was like $1,000 already. That's kind of hyper expensive like too. But I will say this, and I'm gonna just say this right now, that if I literally did not have any of my editing software whatsoever, and you know, it's one of those things where like I did have an available budget, which I mean I do, but if I was a little bit more conscious about like, you know, not trying to like upgrade things over time, and I just wanted to do this like in a very simplistic, convenient manner, keyword convenient, I would probably look into those MacBook Pros if I didn't have any of my equipment. Heard that the microphone like built into the laptop is actually really good, so you could run podcasts on that one, as among other things. If you had like a really good camera, then you could also do that too. It just offers like a lot in that package. Oh, excuse me. For 2000, and honestly, like where they're going with like the increases like in the CPU and whatnot, all the other mumbo jumbo that unfortunately I have no like grasp on. It's a way to possibly just future proof yourself for a good number of years, because at this point, like if you're one for like content like creation, honestly you can still just keep uploading stuff at like 1080 and you're good. Sure, 4K is an accessible thing, but like things like Twitch and whatnot, streaming platforms, they still like will only do a max of like 1080 because they aren't really allowing you to be able to stream like for high amounts of bandwidth, because no one has access to that level of bandwidth. Like we were just struggling like with the bandwidth as it is. Like earlier I just mentioned that like, oh, we're kind of dying on stream, and we just have like the most minimal internet plan here in this household, and this is what we work with. So I just think that like from my standpoint that those MacBook Pros would be a really great thing to kind of invest in, and hopefully never have to upgrade for a good number of years, whether you're a content creator or, well, it kind of leans towards content creation specifically. Otherwise you can really just settle for like their other MacBook with the M1 chip. which is already impressive as it is. So that's my piece on it. Just as someone who's like played around with different types of laptops. I mean, I've had like two other laptops like that I've previously owned, and I use them both for editing, and they're not the greatest things in the world, but they got the job done. Um, but damn, dude, just to know that like there's so much power as far as like the processing there. Whew, damn, damn. Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and call it here. We're gonna wrap it up. So appreciate everyone for tuning in for the stream. It's been a pretty good talk, actually. I kind of just like had a bunch of talking points, and with everyone chiming in as well, it's been just a really good, engaging conversation. So yeah, so we'll end here. Thank you guys so much for watching for this episode of DangIT Prodcast. This has been episode 383. My name is Justin, and we'll see you guys next time.